Hey guys, Russ here. Welcome back to my channel. Alright, big news. I've had my 2024 Subaru Forester Sport for precisely 2 years now. And in this video, I want to tell you what it's been like living with this car and driving it here in New York City. Today, I want to specifically focus on the location because driving my Forester here in Brooklyn is very different from where I see most reviewers test cars like mine. Usually, when you see any Subaru review, it's most often on a sunny day on some perfect mountain road in Colorado somewhere. And of course, you think Subaru Forester, outdoorsy vehicle, makes sense, sure, why not? But in my life, I daily my Forester here in Brooklyn, and 80% of the driving I do is city driving. So while you're probably used to seeing Subaru reviews with beautiful scenery and empty roads, I'm over here in the real world dodging freaking Brooklyn potholes the size of bathtubs, crawling through traffic with Altimas without front bumpers, and dealing with street parking, snowstorms, and floodings. So in this video, I want to talk to you about what it's actually been like daily driving my Subaru Forester around New York City and all its boroughs, the good, the bad, and the stuff nobody really talks about. Let's go. Let me just start by saying that after 2 years with this car, I still love my Subaru Forester, and I completely understand why so many people feel the same way, and frankly, why you see so many Subarus everywhere. But at the same time, I'm not in cult, I'm not a fanboy, so I'm gonna tell it like it is. And there are definitely things about this car that would drive a lot of people crazy. I mean, the CVT, it does weird stuff at times. The City MPG can be absolutely awful. And some design solutions and features leave me scratching my head. But let's start on a good note, and it's a big one. This car feels built for bad roads, and if you live in New York City, you already know the roads here are just horrible. Not just a little rough, I mean, they're genuinely terrible. Some streets feel like the city just gave up. And honestly, the Forester absolutely shines here. The suspension tuning is perfect for this environment. It's not sporty, it's not stiff, it just absorbs terrible pavement without making you feel like the car is falling apart underneath you. I mean, every ride here, you're gonna get broken asphalt, construction metal plates, potholes, uneven pavement. The Forester just eats it all up and keeps moving, while somehow staying absolutely planted in a straight line. And the ride height helps here as well. My Subaru Forester has 8.7 inches of ground clearance, which is pretty healthy number. For reference, the stock ground clearance on Lexus GX 460 is 8.1 inches. And if you go to the Subaru Wilderness trim, you get even more, like 9.3 inches of ground clearance. So how does it all help? Well, because you're not constantly terrified of scraping the bottom of the car while entering parking lots, driving over speed bumps, or those manhole covers that stick up from the ground. And how many times did I ride over giant rocks that look like boulders just sitting in the middle of the road for no apparent reason? No issues ever. My Forester just rides right over them. And of course, you pay for that ride height and comfort with some body roll, but I wouldn't call it critical or in any way a bad trade off. Let's move on to another great feature of this car that has made city driving so much better. And I'm talking about visibility. I genuinely think that the Forester might have the best visibility of any modern SUV, and this is very much by design. Let's start up front with the Boxer engine. How is the engine responsible for visibility? Let me explain. The engine that is mounted horizontally under the hood is a Boxer engine, so it's naturally flat, meaning it has like much lower physical profile than a standard inline or V-shaped engine. Basically, this allows the engine to be mounted extremely low and directly in line with the drivetrain. Because the engine sits so low, Subaru is able to angle the hood lower, and that's how you're able to achieve this great visibility directly ahead of the vehicle. And when you look to the sides, the windows are huge as well. It's like you're sitting inside a huge glass box. Honestly, it's like an aquarium in here. Great for visibility and great for your passengers. The seating position is upright and you sit high, not as high as some full-size body-on-frame SUVs, obviously, but definitely above most traffic. I was at the New York Auto Show recently and noticed an unmistakable pattern that modern crossovers and SUVs keep getting taller, wider, and bigger, and somehow harder to see out of. I mean, many times looking at the car's styling, it appears that the manufacturers kill big usable windows in the name of design. I'm looking at you, Lexus NX 200. But yeah, you get the idea. But this is where Subaru Forester really shines in comparison. The pillars aren't crazy thick. You pretty much always know where the corners are. As a result, parallel parking is easier. Going up tight parking garages is easier. Avoiding curbs is easier. So is avoiding other cars and pedestrians. Of course, I'm obviously not going to tell you that having big windows and narrow pillars is as good as a 360 camera, but unfortunately, this option was never truly offered in the 5th gen Forester. All I've seen globally was some markets where they put a camera on the side of the right mirror so you could see the curb when you're parking. And obviously, on a wilderness trim here in the United States, you have the front facing camera. Good try, but not as good as a real 360 camera, obviously. I mean, my father in law had a 360 camera on his Kia Sorento in 2015, and this is a 2024 car, and it was never offered, not even on top trims. I mean, yikes. But hey, at least you get big windows. Alright, now let's talk about the thing that Subaru owners always become super passionate about. I had this car for 2 winters now, and the first one wasn't anything special, but the second, we had a lot of snowstorms, we had a blizzard, and the car performed extremely well. All this symmetrical all-wheel drive hype, it's real, it's not just marketing. So the main difference you have to understand when looking at the Subaru Forester all-wheel drive system and say cars like Toyota RAV4 is that the Subaru Forester has a system that is constantly engaged, with the wheels receiving power non-stop, all four of them. Whereas cars like Toyota, for example, it's in front wheel drive mode most of the time, with the back wheels coming in only when the car notices that it needs assistance. So when you drive this car through a place like New York City, where winter roads become this disgusting mix of snow, slush, ice, salt, the Forester just feels planted. You're not scared to drive these roads. And no, all-wheel drive doesn't magically make you invincible, but it does make the car feel calmer, more confident, and yeah, you just feel secure. I mean, this is New York City. Some roads here will get plowed and some won't. And even if you have a plow go through, it can often mean that your car is going to be basically buried in snow. And yeah, I was able to get into and get out of parking spaces all winter long with no problems. And it was absolutely crazy to realize that this car can do this. So yeah, I was hugely impressed, and in 2 winters I had this car. I never ever had to get out and shovel because the car was stuck, for example. All I did at most was move some ice boulders around so as not to scratch the car before I start moving. But other than that, put this thing in X mode, deep snow mud, and watch it turn into a tank. By the way, speaking of X mode, my car, because it's a sport trim, comes with the dual function X mode. So the first dial is snow dirt, and the second dial is deep snow mud. So try to go for the car with the dual function X mode because I just believe that it gives you more capability to get out of the rough stuff. Actually, this past winter, I was able to get into this open field right after it snowed, and I drove like 1,000 feet right over fresh new snow right after a blizzard. And when I got to the edge of the waterline, the only people there were two guys in their lifted up Jeep Rubicons, and both of them gave me thumbs up because I think they were as impressed as I was that my Subaru Forester made it across that entire field without getting stuck once. On stock tires, by the way. That's actually the day I will never forget. It made me fall in love with this car, made me respect this car because never in a million years I thought that this Subaru Forester, my Subaru Forester that I drove through the summer and spring and fall, was capable of this, that it could just basically get into this heavy snow and just point it and drive. I was in X mode deep snow mud situation, but yeah, this was like a tank. Never got stuck once. Occasionally I would feel the snow scraping the bottom of the car, but it just kept going all the way till it got me to where I needed to go. So yeah, that was a day I'll never forget. Now, the part Subaru owners usually try to avoid talking about, the CVT. Honestly, Most of the time, it's completely fine, especially on the highway when you're between the speeds of like 35 to 80. Feels like an automatic, has zero issues. Basically, yeah, CVT, not CVT, doesn't matter. But every once in a while, and I mean every couple of 100 miles in my case, it does weird Subaru CVT things, especially at lower speeds, like slowing down from 20 to 15 when you're trying to just like basically lift your foot off the gas and try to coast down to a stop sign. Sometimes there's like this jolt and the car is surging forward as the torque converter releases around like 15 miles an hour. It feels like almost like somebody lightly bumped in the back of the car. And when you go from 0 to 15 miles an hour in the stop and go traffic, it can be occasionally like jumpy. And yeah, it doesn't feel broken. It's not horrible. It's just weird. And after a while, you kind of adapt to it. But I'm someone who enjoys driving the car, and I want to basically to be on the same page with the car. And these little quirks really take the pleasure away from driving, for me at least. And as I often say on this channel, I'd pay a lot more to get a predictable, bulletproof automatic over this CVT business, but you don't have an option to do that. I think this channel would have been all about Toyota RAV4 and Mazda CX-5 ownership if I was able to comfortably fit into those cars. I'm 6'4", and yeah, I wasn't comfortable in a Toyota RAV4 and Mazda CX-5. Those cars just too small for me. But yeah, if I was able to comfortably fit in those cars, would have been a different story. Probably be in a RAV4 right now, simply because they have traditional automatic gearboxes and Subaru Forester doesn't. But yeah, going into this, I did all my research and I was never a fan of getting a car with CVT. And I don't think it's something I'll ever be able to love. It's just not the best experience, especially when driving in the city, which is, like I said, is where I spend most of the time driving this car. To be fair, over time, your brain kind of learns the car's behavior and you naturally start braking a bit harder so the torque release lurch forward isn't as pronounced, or you accelerate a bit more than you would want to, just so the CVT doesn't hunt for simulated gears from that 0 to 15 miles an hour range. I mean, it's a process. I'm just not a huge fan. All right, let's talk about the brakes. They're good, really solid, and that matters in New York City because traffic here constantly does unpredictable things. You get into a car and the brake pedal feels natural and confidence inspiring from the very first time. You basically always know what the car is gonna do, and same could be said for the throttle. Throttle response around the city is decent. It's not fast, but it never feels completely asleep at lower speeds. It basically feels very direct, very connected. Now, as for the highway merging, that's where you definitely notice the lack of power, especially on some New York City area on ramps where you get like 2.5 seconds to merge to the highway speed while there's a BMW approaching at Mach 7 behind you. I mean, the Forester gets up to speed eventually. It has 182 horsepower boxer engine, 176 pound-feet of torque, and 0 to 60 is approximately 9 seconds, so not the fastest car, obviously. But there are definitely moments where I wish I had just a little bit more power. And at first, I didn't feel this way, but the more I drive it, the more I feel like I need that extra power, especially when the car is fully loaded with people and cargo. It would be nice to have more power, and not necessarily even for speed, but for safety. Because, yeah, like I said, the only time I feel like this car is low on power is when I'm trying to merge on a highway, especially from a really short on ramp. Highway passing power is adequate, but could use an improvement as well. Believe it or not, sometimes I do end up in the left lane, and I literally have to floor this car in order to pass somebody in the middle lane. So yeah, not the most pleasurable experience if I'm honest. Um, it does annoy me that the 4th gen Forester before mine had the XT Turbo model, which did 0 to 60 in like 6 seconds, and here I am in my 5th gen. And the 5th generation should be better than the 4th, right? And yet, in the 5th gen, they took away the turbo option. So yeah, 182 horsepower, 9 seconds to 60 is the best you got. Alright, on to the next topic, and it's a boring one, and nobody's talking about it because it's boring, but it's insurance costs. Basically, this is where the Forester starts making so much sense around New York City, especially. Insurance here is expensive, as you know, because it's New York City. And basically, before getting this car, I was choosing between RAV4, Nissan Rogue, Mazda CX-5, and for all of them, I'd be paying around $350 a month here in Brooklyn. Yeah, these are my real quotes I was getting from Geico, and for my Subaru Forester, it was giving me 220. So I'm just like, wow, is it an error? Like, how can it be so much less? I don't know. Is it because Forester drivers are better drivers and file less claims? Is it because of the safety tag, safety ratings? Could be. I'm not an expert here, but all I know is that I'm saving more than $1,000 every year just by driving a Forester, and I mean, it all adds up, guys. Same thing with gas. Thank you, Subaru, for designing the engine to run on regular 87 gas, with gas prices being up roughly 50% in the last 2 months. At least I can feel a little bit better about filling up, since at least I know that I'm buying the cheapest gas at the pump. However, New York City traffic absolutely destroys fuel economy. This car is rated at 33 highway, 26 city. Like I said in my previous real world fuel economy video, this car can do 35 mpg all day long on a highway. Never even trying to achieve those numbers. It's great on a highway. But the city mpg, I'm struggling to get to 16 mpg on most days. And I don't blame the car, I blame the city I'm driving in. Um, yeah, Brooklyn is a special kind of place for city MPG in the worst possible way. I mean, you get red lights almost every block, constant idling, stop and go traffic for miles on end. I don't use auto start stop, and I don't use it for three reasons. Number one, I want to protect the battery. Number two, I want to protect and preserve the starter motor. And number three, I just don't like the way it's implemented. It's just too rough, and when I did try to use it, the way it just cuts off the engine, the way it powers the engine back up. I mean, it's just, yeah, not a fan. It's the opposite of smooth, and I didn't like it at all. So yeah, having such low numbers when it comes to city MPG in my Subaru Forester kind of makes me understand why I almost never see um, Uber drivers drive a Subaru Forester. I maybe seen like three of them in the last 2 years. They're like unicorns here. RAV4 hybrids everywhere, CRV hybrids everywhere, Foresters almost never. Because hybrids make way more financial sense if your entire life is nonstop city traffic. But of course, in 2024, Subaru Forester didn't even have a hybrid model in the United States yet, but they do have one now. Subaru, if you're watching this, I'd love to test drive one. Send one over, please. So anyways, is the Subaru Forester perfect for New York City? Great question. Like I mentioned, this car does a lot of things absolutely right. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. The interior could feel nicer, the infotainment feels laggy and old, CVT can be weird, City MPG isn't great, no 360 camera is pretty ridiculous in 2026. But for real world New York City driving, I honestly think this is one of the best practical daily driver SUVs you can own, especially if your priorities are comfort, visibility, safety, driving in bad weather and snow. If it matters to have reasonable ownership and insurance costs, also this is a car for you. And most importantly, to have a car you trust in terms of reliability, dependability, safety, like I said. And honestly, that combination matters way more in New York than having a 500 horsepower SUV you could never actually use anyway. So, yeah, if you live in New York City and own a Forester like mine, let me know your experience. And if you're cross shopping SUVs, ask me anything in the comments, because this isn't some today press car review. This is my actual car, and this is the real ownership experience. All right, guys, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.